Hello aspirants and welcome again to Legacy IAS Academy. In this current affairs revision series, in this lecture we'll be seeing the November 2024 current affairs for Indian economy. So let's get started. Let's see what all are the news that we are going to cover in this. So the first thing that we will cover is the RBI's new framework. It has issued a framework for what? Reclassification of FPI to FDI. We'll see what that is all about. When you have FPI that get converted into FDI, so what is the reclassification of that? Then domestic systematically important banks, that means too big to fail banks. What banks are these? What is the concept of this and what the new list says? Then we have scheme for medical device industry, right? Medical devices like stents, etc., which are used for surgery, etc. We'll see that. Then the State of Food and Agriculture 2024 report organization. Then we have the 21st Livestock Census. Now the census is not completed, but it has started with what factors in taking into account. We'll see all that. Then you have World Organization for Animal Health. Wow, that is what it is pronounced as probably. And then you have nano fertilizers. We'll see what nano fertilizers are. What is the size of these nano fertilizers? We'll see that as well to get classified as a nano fertilizer. Then you have Mormugao Port Authority, Beta Dry Port. We'll see what this is, where this is. Then WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization has come up with World Intellectual Property Indicators 2024 report. Then you have the Permanent Account Number 2.0. What is this all about? And finally, Uniform Protection Protocol. So we will see all this in detail in this lecture. Now before we start, as you know, this is a part of the prelims revision series for current affairs for 2025. Aspirants already started on 21st February. I hope all of you are watching each episode in order to cover all the important topics of the last 1 year. Right, at the same time, brief notes will also be provided, which will be helping you in your prelims exam. Further, one more program that has been started is the Impact 2025, that is intensive mains practice and content training, in which comprehensive answer writing practice will be provided along with content enrichment sessions. The most important thing of this session, I keep repeating time and again, is the personalized feedback and mentorship. Now this will be covered for all the GS papers plus essay in over 50 hours in a total of around 34 sessions. Having said that, let's begin with November 2024's current affairs. So RBI has issued framework for reclassification of FPI to FDI. Now what is FPI? What is FDI? FPI here, the full form is Foreign Portfolio Investment. It is basically FII, that is Foreign Institutional or Investment or Foreign Indirect Investment. Now indirect investment can be done with various tools like bonds, commercial papers, so on and so forth. And then there is foreign direct investment. Direct investment can be done in industries wherein you have established an industry or a part of the industry that has been established, which creates jobs, so on and so forth. Now the definition of FPI and FDI is very simple. Any amount of investment which is less than 10% is considered as FPI. If it is 10% or more, it is considered as FDI. It is that simple, nothing doing. Now, what is this reclassification all about and what is the need for that? See, what happens is you might have, I said that any amount less than 10% is FPI. So you might have invested less amount, let's say it is 7%, so it is getting classified as FPI. But if you invest 3% more now, or 4% more, now it is more than 10%. So now it should be classified as what? As FDI. So what should happen? The FPI which you have should now be reclassified as an FDI, right? Is that very straightforward? Sort of straightforward, but there are certain rules and guidelines that needs to be followed in order for your FPI to be reclassified to FDI. Definition wise it has to be, but it has to follow certain procedure. So that procedures framework RBI has issued. That is what is meant by issuing a framework for reclassification of FPI to FDI. Why the reclassification? Because presently it is classified as FPI. It needs to be reclassified as FDI. That's what framework RBI has issued. So under current regulation, FPIs can hold a maximum of 10%. So it is up to 10%, actually, not less. It is up to 10%, maximum of 10% of an Indian company's total paid up equity. Now, exceeding this 10% cap, what will happen? Your FPIs will be getting converted into FDI. But does that happen automatically? No. The FPIs are left with two choices. Either sell off, means what? Let's say you have a 7% share. So it is classified as FPI. Now let's say you are adding 4% more. So you are adding 4% more. Now it is going to become 11%. So it will get classified as FDI. So you have two options. One, sell off some amount of the share, sell off this, so that your total invested share is just 4%, it is still considered as FPI, or let it get classified as foreign direct investment. So these are the two choices. Now, the first choice, anyhow, if you're selling, then why to buy additionally? People will think that also, but you want to keep invested, so you can sell off some, or you can just reclassify them as an FDI. Okay. Now, this reclassification as FDI is possible, but not in all sectors. It is not to be permitted in sectors prohibited for FDI. There might be certain sectors which are prohibited for FDI, in which FDI cannot come at all. So in those sectors, of course, logically speaking, the FPI will not be converted into FDI. Example, the chit fund, gambling, etc. Now, for FPI investments that require government approval from different authorities, right? So it will also, to convert, again government approval will require, plus it will also need Indian investee company's concurrence. The company in which your share is invested, that company also needs to give you a confirmation that yes, boss, I am allowing this to happen. That is required. Now, this entire thing, the FPI reclassification, will be guided by the Foreign Exchange Management, Mode of Payment and Reporting of Non-Debt Instruments Regulation 2009. Remember, it's the Foreign Exchange Management Regulation 2019. Okay. So we know the difference of also FDI and FPI also, right? Now, FDI involves what? Of course, the foreign investors acquiring the equity, the share in Indian company. Now, usually it is the long term. The FDI is usually long term and largely a non-debt creating capital flow. Why is it a non-debt creating capital flow? Because when FDI is coming, you are giving the equity, the shares. So you are not liable to pay back the amount because the other person has got the share. Now, whatever profit and loss the company makes, the person who has invested will be a part of that loss and profit. Now, FDI can be through approval route, or FDI can be through the automatic route as well. In automatic rule, of course, there's no need for approval. In approval rules, there are approval of the government, the ministry is required, the ministry in which you, related to the sector in which you are investing, plus the external affairs ministry, plus the home affairs ministry, all these ministries will be involved for the approval process. Now, FDI can be made both in listed as well as unlisted company. I hope this FPI, FDI distinguishment and the reclassification is clear. Let's move on to the next topic, that is domestic systematically important banks. These banks are also known as too big to fail banks. Now, what is the concept of domestic systematically important banks? See, there can be certain banks who grow too much, too big. They become so big that they have a huge market capitalization, so that if these banks fail, the economy can be adversely impacted. That is why the government would not let it fail, in the sense that work hard, have higher, superior, better, stricter regulations on them in order to ensure that they do not fail. These are called as too big to fail bank or domestic systematically important banks. Previously, the three banks were there which were too big to fail, that is SBI, HDFC and ICICI Bank. Now a new list has been released by RBI. Now in this list also these three banks are there. So what does this mean? The three banks have retained the tag of domestic systematically important banks and no new banks have been added. So you should know the concept of it and also the fact that these three banks are domestic systematically important bank. Okay. Now this DSIB's framework is based on the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision's framework. Basel Committee on Banking Supervision's framework. Now, banks having size as a percentage of GDP equal to or more than 2% are considered as DSIBs. That means SBI, HDFC, ICICI Bank, they have a size of more than 2% of India's GDP. Now, Financial Stability Board releases the list of government SIBs. Now, coming on to the next topic, that is schemes for medical device industry. So, various schemes for medical device industry have been released. As I told you, medical device like stents, not just stents, various machines, echocardiograph, this, that, various schemes for that has come up. So, what is the total outlay? You don't have to remember the exact figure, but at least know a roundabout, so that in options where it is extravagantly high or low, you should know that that is incorrect. As such, UPSC may not ask you the exact outlay, but UPSC can ask you a question in which a rough estimate needs to be there. For example, UPSC can say that it has an outlay of 5,000 crore. So you should know it's not 5,000, it's not in thousands, it's just in hundreds. Or if UPSC says it's just 5 crore or 50 crore, you should know, no, it's more, it's 10 times more. So this is the kind of options the UPSC will give. Now, this particular scheme consists of 5 sub-schemes. Very important to know the name of each and every one. The very first is Common Facilities for Medical Devices Clusters. This is related to enhancing the infrastructure of this industry. Second is Marginal Investment Scheme for reducing import dependencies. It aims to localize the production of these devices rather than importing it. Third is Capacity Building and Skill Development for Medical Devices. It will provide financial support for running various courses which will develop the skill for the people to establish or to construct these devices. Then you have Medical Device Clinical Studies Support Schemes. So it will provide financial aid for animal studies, human trials, and clinical performance of evaluations that is done. And then finally, Medical Device Promotion Scheme. It will support the industry association and export councils for organizing conferences, conducting studies, surveys in order to come up with better designs, better technology, better equipment, so on and so forth. So everything is related with respect to the development or the creation or the production of medical devices, so that we can produce ourselves indigenously and ensure that the imports are brought down. So it has a sort of export orientation. Next topic is the State of Food and Agriculture 2024 report. Now, this report is brought out by FAO, that is Food and Agriculture Organization. Remember that it is, though it does not have the word UN written in front of it, for example, UNDP, UNEP, UNSC, UNGA, etc. It does not have that word written, but this is also a United Nations organization. In fact, it is one of the 15 specialized agencies of United Nations. United Nations has a total of 15 specialized agencies. You should know these 15. You should not remember it by heart, but if in the option it is given, you should be able to identify whether it is a specialized agency of United Nations or not. So FAO is one such organization. Now, what does this report talk about? It emphasizes on the value-driven transformation of agri-food systems. Value-driven means talking about value addition, builds on the estimates of the previous edition on global hidden cost of agri-food system. Global hidden cost of agri-food system. Now, what is the global hidden cost of agri-food system? See, in an agri-food system, when you are producing the food, there is some input cost that is required. The cost of seeds, the cost of fertilizers, so on and so forth, land cost, labor cost, etc. But there are various other costs are there which are not incorporated, that are hidden For example, the cost of environment. So that is what this hidden cost is all about. It consists of the negative externalities, the pollution, the carbon footprint, the environment that is getting hampered, or economic losses triggered by other market policy failures. So all these negative externalities we do not take into account also is to be taken into account, and that is known as the hidden cost. I hope that's absolutely clear. Now, moving ahead to the livestock census, the 21st livestock census. Now, human census happen once in 10 years, but try to remember it in this way. Animals probably are more important. That is why their census are done once every 5 years. So not to say that that is the case. It may be more equal or less, but the idea is, remember that the livestock census is done once in every 5 years. So now the Union Minister of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairy have launched the 21st livestock census to, of course, update the livestock population data. Now, what are the features of this survey or of this census? The very first feature is it is fully digitalized. Does that mean it is the first fully digitalized livestock census? No, it is not, because it is similar to the previous census, that is the 20th census, which was also fully digitalized. Now the data on how many species, 16 species of livestock will be taken into consideration. So in PIB release they have mentioned total 15 species plus one another species, so do not get confused. It is a total of 16 species that they are talking about, and these species will have various foreign breeds as well as indigenous breeds. So it will take into consideration their 219 indigenous breed which will be captured in this particular census. Now what is happening for the first time becomes very important. For the first time, this survey is going to cover the data on pastoralists. Now, who are pastoralists? These are grazing farmers, for example, animal grazers who graze the animals, rear the animals, right? So they graze all these animals. They are known as pastoralists. They keep on moving from one place to another. They generally do not have a settled household. They are settled life like the Banjaras, the caravanserais. In the same manner, these pastoralists also keep on moving. So for the first time in the history of livestock census, the data on pastoralists will also be taken into consideration. So what kind of data they will take into consideration? See, what happens is, so far what is happening is the livestock census when happens. So you survey it, you understand how many livestock are there, how many sheep, goats, cattle, oxen, so on and so forth, pigs, etc. are present. You take care of you count their population. Now this population can be indigenous, can be foreign, so you then bifurcate with respect to how much is indigenous, how much is foreign, then you compare it with the previous data, how much is the increase, how much is the decline, so on and so forth. Now this data is generally taken when you are doing survey. So you take this data from the permanent establishment which is existing, which is at least settled at one place, but the pastoralists, they keep on moving from one place to another. So what can happen is, today the pastoralist is here and the survey is taking place somewhere else. Tomorrow the survey is going to come here, but this pastoralist is going to move away, right? Or this pastoralist will not be taken into account. But this year onwards, these pastoralist data will also be taken into account. The amount of cattle, the amount of livestock they have will also be calculated. A separate data will come out of it. At the same time, it will form the part of the total cumulative data as well. Now, the focus is on gender roles in livestock rearing. Very important. Why? Because this can be a direct question statement. UPSC can say that the 21st livestock survey is going to have a special focus on gender roles in livestock rearing. Yes, that statement is correct. Now, what do we mean by gender specific roles in livestock rearing? It means that it is also going to calculate how many females are involved in animal rearing. What is the percentage of females in animal rearing? What is the labor force participation? What is the workforce participation of females in animal rearing? This is very, very crucial going forward for gender budgeting, for women empowerment, for creating new policies, better policies for taking into account the work done by females in the animal rearing sector, so on and so forth. So there is going to be a specific focus on gender roles in livestock rearing. Now, this livestock census, as I said, have been conducted every 5 years. The very first was conducted in 1919 and the last one conducted in 2019. So 100 years have passed. Now it's 105 years and the 21st survey is going on. I hope that's clear. So the next topic is World Organization for Animal Health. Now, what is the news all about? The Indian Council of Agricultural Research, ICAR, National Research Center for Equines, ICAR NRC Equines, in which state Haryana has been granted a status or a WOAH reference laboratory status. What does this mean? That this particular ICAR NRC Equine is now WOAH reference laboratory status it has got. So it can act as a WOAH reference laboratory. It can conduct certain tests, certain experiments whose outcome is validated by WOAH. Now this recognition is especially for its expertise in equine pyroplasmosis diseases, equine primoplasmosis diseases. So this experiment, this results, which is validated by WOAH, is specifically in its expertise of equine pyroplasmosis disease. It may be difficult to pronounce, but at least remember the word to some extent. Now, what is this equine pyroplasmosis? It is caused by tick. It is caused by a tick or a tick-borne protozoa parasites. What is a tick-borne protozoa parasite? Tick itself is an organism. On that tick, there can be a protozoan parasite. So that is why tick-borne. That means it gets transferred from a tick. So it's a tick-borne protozoan parasite which affects horses, donkeys, mules, and zebras. So it affects specific animals, as we saw the examples of horses, donkeys, mules, etc. Now, what is WOAH? It is an intergovernmental organization founded in 1924. What is the objective? Disseminating information on animal diseases and improving animal health globally. So two focus area: information on animal diseases and improving the animal health globally. Now there are total 183 members including India. So India is a member. It is headquartered in Paris, France. Now any organization that you come through during your current affairs, during your studies, please remember what they do. Also remember where is their headquarters located. In fact, you should have a list of such organizations. Many of the organizations are headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, many in Paris also, and many in New York, USA as well. So these are the basics. A lot of organizations will be covered here only, but then there are other organizations which are headquartered elsewhere as well. For example, Asia Infrastructure Development Bank, New Development Bank, so on and so forth. So it is very important to know. Few years back, a lot of questions on indices, reports, headquarters, etc. were there. Now the number of such questions has declined, but since it has declined, now we don't know when it will arise also a lot in numbers. So be prepared for that as well. Going ahead with nano fertilizers. So what is nano? Nano basically means 10 to the power minus 9. Now after nano, what comes? Pico, that is 10 to the power minus 12. Right. So nano means what? Technology which is having the size of round about 10 to the power minus 9. So 10 into 10 to the power minus 9, 100 into 10 to the power minus 9, that is close to 10 to the power minus 7. So round about that, not exactly. It need not necessarily exactly be 10 to the power minus 9 only. It can be slightly more, slightly less as well. All these technology of this size are considered to be nanotechnology. This is so small. Such a small amount or size is used in nanotechnology. If we can reach pico technology, that is PICO, that would be 10 to the power minus 12. But here we have gone on to the levels of 10 to the power minus 9, that is nano fertilizers. So what has happened? Indian scientists have developed a nano material coating made of nano clay for muriate of potash. Muriate of potash. Potash means this means what? This is basically a chemical, or you can say a chemical fertilizer which is used. So fertilizer, when you talk about, you need NPK, that is nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. So muriate of potash provides with you with the potassium that is required by the crops. So nano fertilizers, they are what? Nutrients that are encapsulated or coated within nano material, measuring how much? 100 nanometers or less. That means 100 into 10 to the power minus 9 or even less than that. This is the size that we are talking about, the nano size. So the, sorry. So the term nano fertilizer comes from the fact that the size is in nanometers, that is in range of 10 to the power minus 9. Now, what is so important about this? See, whenever size reduces in technology, when technology advances, the size reduces, the efficiency sort of increases. If you talk about irrigation, then we went to micro irrigation. So size has reduced. So the efficiency of application of water has increased. Same is the factor, same is the case over here. So it enables controlled release and subsequent slow diffusion of the chemical fertilizer into the soil. So the release is highly controlled, its diffusion is also highly controlled, it will be slow and controlled manner. That is the benefit. Of course, it promotes sustainable farming. It reduces soil and water contamination, absolutely, because it provides that exact quantity. There is not much residue that will remain. That will not be too much of let's say runoff which will be generated. What is runoff? You know, too much of fertilizer is there. Now it will take time for the plants to consume it, but it rains. So what happens? All this fertilizer is washed off with the water, goes into the water body, enters the food chain, becomes toxic for us. Now that will not happen, because exact same quantity will be released part by part and reach directly to the plants through their roots, etc. So it will be a sustainable method. Of course, it improves nutrient absorption, reduces nutrient wastage, as I said, runoff, etc. And lower application frequency is required. Right? Whenever exactly it is required, you can provide that. I hope this is absolutely clear. That was about the nano fertilizer. Now, Marmugao Port Authority. So what is it about? It is in news basically because it has been recognized globally as an incentive provider on the Environmental Ship Index platform. Environmental Ship Index is basically calculating the environment impact with respect to the shipping industry. If any ship or porting authority does better, positive, it will be considered as an incentive provider based on Environment Ship Index. Right? So that is the concept. Now it is published by the International Association of Ports and Harbors, IAPH, since 2011. What it does, it identifies ships that perform better in reducing air emission than required by the current standards. So the current standard may require you to emit only X amount of carbon, for example. It does less than X. So this particular ship will be better environmentally. Right? So that emission should be less than the current emission standards provided by the International Maritime Organization, that is IMO. Now, what more about Marmugao Port Authority is that this Marmugao Port is a major port of India. It is located in Goa. Important for question in prelims, specifically like match the following question. They can give you all the ports on the left side, and on the right side they can give you the place where it is present. Not just that, UPSC now has come up with the third column. So 1, 2, port, the location, the third, whether it's a major port or a minor port, can also be asked. Now this particular port authority has also started the Harit Shrey scheme, that is which incentivizes the ships with favorable ESI scores. So whatever ship will have favorable ESI score, it will be incentivized. It aims towards what? Of course, decarbonization and green shipping. So this particular Harit Shrey scheme has been started by Marmugao Port Authority. I hope that's absolutely clear. Next is Beta dry port. Now what is dry port? In dry port the shipping and all will not happen, but it provides the related infrastructure for the actual port for its functioning. So this dry port, this is Bihar's first dry port, also known as inland container depot, was inaugurated in Beta in near Patna. So dry port, what it does not provide any shipping kind of a facility of direct ship coming from the ocean, etc. No, but it provides the logistics facility away from a seaport or airport for cargo handling, storage, transportation, etc., etc. Consider this to be the surrounding area which is being built properly in order to provide storage, handling, transportation, etc. for the actual shipping activity. Now, next is the World Intellectual Property Indicators Report 2024. As I said, it has been brought out by the World Intellectual Property Organization, that is WIPO. Now, according to the report, India has experienced significant growth in intellectual property filings. The number of IPOs that we were filing has drastically increased. It is saying that the filings have doubled between 2018 to 2023. So, in 5 years, the filing of IPO by India has doubled. India is ranked 6th globally with respect to patent filing. We are filing around 6,400 patent. India's IP office holds the second highest active registrations globally, and India ranks 4th globally in trademark filings. So the total number of IPOs filed, India is 6th. How many are open registrations of IPO of India? India is, I think, 2nd. India is 2nd. And with respect to the trademark filings, India is 4th. So India is doing considerably well in this domain presently. Now, coming on to the management of the patents. So World Intellectual Property Organization is there. Then WTO's TRIPS Agreement of 1994 is there, which manages or regulates the IPO, the granting of IPO, so on and so forth. And there are conventions, you should remember them: Patent Cooperation Treaty 1970 and Budapest Treaty 1977. UPSC can directly give you this treaty and ask what is it related to. So you should know that these are conventions related to patents. Now the Patents Act of 1970 is what India has. It was amended in 2005, fair enough, but you need to remember the Patents Act 1970. Now, this act ensured compliance of what? The WTO TRIPS agreement. So what happens is, when there is an international agreement, there is an international agreement. So, you know, the specific country can also come up with certain guidelines, certain act, in order to give effect to that international agreement. So that TRIPS agreement is getting effect from the Patents Act of 1970. All right, next. CCEA, that is Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, approved PAN 2.0 project of the IT department. So what is it? An e-governance, it is an e-governance initiative for re-engineering the business processes of taxpayers' registration through technology-driven transformation. So now PAN card is there, which has alphanumeric numbers. So now it will help to do business in an easier way. It will be an upgrade for the current PAN or TAN that is provided. Right. So what is PAN? PAN is a 10-digit alphanumeric. Alphanumeric means there will be alphabets as well as numbers. So if you look at the PAN card number, you will find alphabets as well as number involved over here. It is issued by the IT department. Why? To, you know, identify the taxpayer, identify the person, not necessarily the taxpayer. The person can have a PAN card and a salary so low that they are not even required to pay direct taxes, is what I'm talking about. So, but the government should know how much money is coming to the person, where it is going, so on and so forth, and a person needs to have just one PAN number, not more than one. What are the agencies that provide this? Protean, formerly known as NSDL, and UTI Infrastructure Technology and Services, UTI ITSL. These are the two agencies that provide you PAN card. So if your PAN card is, let's say you want a new copy of the PAN card, you can go on either of the website and get your PAN card. These are the two issuing agencies. Now, the last news is Uniform Protection Protocol. Now, what Uniform Protection Protocol? Recently, the Central Electricity Authority has approved the Uniform Protection Protocol for users of Indian grid for implementation on pan-India basis. So what happens is, the grid which is there for electricity distribution in India, generally the distribution of electricity is a major issue, right? So now the CEA, that is Central Electricity Authority, has approved the Uniform Protection Protocol for users of Indian grid. Indian grid means the grid which transfers electricity. What kind of electricity? The renewable electricity. So what is the aim of this scheme? To ensure grid stability. See, what happens is, when renewable energy is there, especially for example solar energy, now the generation of solar energy will be fluctuating throughout the year depending upon the amount of sun rays that is present, right? So fluctuation will be there. Because of fluctuation, the stability in supply will not be there. This scheme specifically focuses on provision or ensuring grid stability, reliability, security, and supporting India's vision for integration of 450 gigawatts renewable energy into national grid by 2030. So, when this will be possible? This will be possible when there is stability, reliability, assurance that the electricity will be provided through renewable energy. Also, it will not fluctuate, it will not die down. As a result of which, this scheme has been brought out so that it helps India's vision of achieving 450 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030. Right. So of course it will ensure proper coordination of protection system in order to protect the equipment system from abnormal activities. Abnormal fluctuation also can destroy the system. So all those checks and balances will be done in order to ultimately ensure grid stability, reliability, security, and support. And when that happens, when this happens, more and more people will be inclined towards this, and more demand will be there. As a result of more and more production of renewable energy, as a result, we will move towards the 450 gigawatts target India has set to achieve by 2030. So guys, these were the important current affairs in the month of November for economics. Stay tuned for the next lecture when we take into account the next month, that is December 2024 current affairs, and subsequently take the remaining months and conclude for all the entire 1 year's current affairs. Thank you.